In this video, I'm going to break down the 3 best habits that you could be doing for your eyes. I'm going to break down the science behind why these particular habits are so helpful for our vision. I'm Dr. Michael Chua. I'm a board-certified ophthalmologist, and I make videos to help you see better, look better, and feel better too. The first habit that makes a significant difference in the health of your eyes and your vision is walking. More and more research over the last few years is showing us the incredible power of walking on your health. But like any medication or treatment, the potency of its effect depends on its dosage. So what's the ideal amount of walking you should be doing? Well, a 2021 study from the journal JAMA Network Open showed us that people who walked at least 7,000 steps per day had a 50 to 70% decrease in mortality compared to people who walk less than 7,000 steps per day. That is a huge, meaningful difference that can be obtained by a singular habit. Here's a figure from that paper. What we can see with walking is a dose-dependent relationship. That is, as we walk more and more steps per day, up until about 10,000 steps, we see a protective effect and a decrease in mortality. Not only is walking healthy for our overall health, but it's an extremely powerful habit for our vision too. When we think about the leading causes for blindness and vision impairment in modern times, they're age-related eye diseases, namely age-related macular degeneration, cataracts, diabetic retinopathy, and glaucoma. For each of these conditions, multiple clinical studies have shown us that increased walking or daily physical activity decreases the risk of developing these conditions, or if we already have these conditions, increased walking can help prevent them from getting worse. For example, a 2020 study out of Sweden showed that people who walked at least 8,500 steps per day had a 63% decrease in the risk of developing diabetes compared to people who walked 4,500 steps per day. And a review article published in 2019 showed that increased physical activity had a protective association with diabetic retinopathy and diabetic eye disease. So we have strong data supporting walking and physical activity to protect us from diabetes and diabetic eye disease. But what about glaucoma? A recent 2019 study published in the journal Ophthalmology from researchers at Johns Hopkins showed us that patients with glaucoma who walked more steps per day were able to slow the progression of their vision loss from glaucoma. They found that an additional 5,000 steps per day decreased the average rate of vision loss by 10%. And if we look at the published studies on macular degeneration and cataracts, we find more of the same. That is, more physical activity, more daily walking, helps to prevent these conditions from occurring and progressing. So, putting the results from these studies together, what we can aim for is walking around 7,500 steps per day, which comes out to about 3.5 miles per day, or about an hour and 10 minutes of walking per day to keep your body and your eyes in optimal condition. If walking is too slow-paced or boring for you, no problem. Many studies have shown us that doing moderate intensity activity, things like an easy jog or gardening or dancing, doing moderate intensity activity for 45 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week also confers many of the same protective effects of decreasing mortality and reducing the risk of diabetes as well as other eye conditions. The next habit we'll talk about for protecting your vision is outdoor time and sunglasses. One trend we eye doctors are noticing throughout the world is that rates of nearsightedness or myopia have risen sharply in the last few decades. And having myopia or nearsightedness isn't just about the inconvenience of having to wear glasses or contact lenses. Patients with high myopia have a significantly increased risk of developing blinding eye conditions like macular degeneration, retinal tears and detachments, and glaucoma. In America, the rate of myopia has doubled over the last 30 years. And in East Asian countries like South Korea, Taiwan, China, and Japan, studies have found that 90 to 95% of their populations already have myopia. A powerful habit, particularly for our children and teenagers who are vulnerable to developing progressive myopia, is outdoor time. Research has shown us that spending more time outdoors is beneficial for children and teenagers' mental, physical, and eye health. Several studies from around the world show that spending about 2 hours per day outside significantly decreases the risk of children developing myopia. Or, if they already have it, increased outdoor time can significantly reduce their myopia progression. One of the prevailing theories is that bright sunlight stimulates the release of dopamine in the retina. Dopamine is a hormone that has been theorized to play a role in regulating the growth of our eye and preventing myopia. For example, this study from 2020 showed that increasing the dopamine activity in mice prevented them from developing myopia. By spending more time outside in the bright light, we're naturally stimulating the release of dopamine in our retinas and providing protection against myopia. The other bonus benefit we get from being outside, particularly in the morning, and this benefit applies to both children and adults, is that All that outdoor light helps us to calibrate our circadian rhythms. We all have an internal biological clock located in the hypothalamus in the brain. When we go outside, the light hits particular cells in our retinas, which send signals to our hypothalamus, allowing us to synchronize our internal body clock with the external environment. This allows us to be more alert and awake during the day, as well as more sleepy and tired at night. So it helps us to fall asleep faster and improves our sleep quality at night. More outdoor time is all well and good, but aren't we also reminded by our dermatologists and eye doctors to stay out of the sun? Isn't all that UV exposure dangerous to our skin and our eyes? So what's it going to be? Well, the good news is that we can still get the benefit of the brightness of outdoor light while still being safe from the sun. Research studies have shown us that even if we're sitting in the shade, even if we're wearing a hat and sunglasses, the levels of brightness reaching our eyes is still much brighter than any indoor lighting situation. And it's still even enough to help protect us against myopia. The other bonus tip I'll mention if we're going to commit to more outdoor time is remembering to wear sunscreen daily. We know that increased time exposed to direct, harsh sunlight and ultraviolet rays can increase the rate of developing wrinkles, skin discoloration, and basically make us look older. Not to mention, increase our chances of developing skin cancer. Prolonged UV exposure can also make us develop cataracts earlier. So, although I am saying spend more time outside, I want to make sure we do it safely. Remember to use at least SPF 30 sunscreen, which blocks 97% of UV rays, as well as ultraviolet blocking sunglasses if you're going to be in direct sunlight for a prolonged period of time. Before we discuss the last habit to protect your eyes, I wanted to tell you about my optimized newsletter. If you want science-backed tips on how to protect your vision and health delivered straight to your inbox, you can sign up for my optimized newsletter at michaelchuamd.com. Okay, back to the habits. Okay, for this next tip, we're going to be talking about diet. When we think about the diseases that most commonly cause us to lose vision, it's the big four that we mentioned earlier: cataracts, diabetic eye disease, glaucoma, and age-related macular degeneration. Now, these are conditions that more commonly appear as we get older. They all usually develop slowly over many decades and are the result of small injuries or deterioration in our eyes that accumulate over many years. And research published in just the past few years is showing us that our lifestyle habits play a large role in our risk of developing these conditions as well as their progression. One lifestyle habit that seems to play a large role in all of these conditions is what we eat. And unfortunately, with the way the modern industrial food complex has shaped out over the past 50 years or so, it's becoming increasingly difficult to maintain a healthy diet. You see, in the early 1900s, a little bit over 100 years ago, the main concerns regarding food were its scarcity. In 1898, famed British scientist Sir William Crookes gave a presidential address to the British Association for the Advancement of Science, and he warned about an impending food shortage. He argued that the rate of global wheat production wasn't keeping pace with the rate of rapid population growth. His speech was actually published in the journal Science, and the journal continues to be published to this day. He warned that unless there were significant changes or advancements in agricultural and farming practices, the world would go hungry. His warning served as a catalyst for transforming agricultural research and methods. It led to increased investments in chemical fertilizers and modern farming techniques, and it laid the foundation of how developed countries would increase their food supply in the mid-1900s. And so, over the last few decades, food corporations have figured out ways to scale their food production in order to feed the masses inexpensively. The problem, though, as they optimize their processes for making lots of food that's cheap and shelf-stable, is that they weren't optimizing for our long-term health. And so, in modern times, for developed countries at least, our problem has shifted from food scarcity to actually an overabundance of cheap, unhealthy, processed food. For example, in this study published in the British Medical Journal in 2015, researchers looked at data from 9,317 respondents who answered a national food survey. They found that 57.9% of the calories in the typical American diet came from ultra-processed foods such as breads, cakes, cookies, pies, salty snacks, frozen pre-made foods, and soda. These foods are shot up with so much added sugar, fat, sweeteners, emulsifiers, and artificial flavors that will make your taste buds go wild in delight, but our bodies, our health, and our vision may regret it later. And what research is showing us is that continuing our diets full of processed, sugar-laden foods severely increases our risk not only of things like obesity, heart disease, and diabetes, but also eye conditions like macular degeneration, glaucoma, and diabetic eye disease. For example, this paper published in April 2023 in the journal Eye investigated the relationship between different lifestyle habits and the development of glaucoma. They looked at data from over 3 million people, of which about 40,000 developed glaucoma. They found that having a BMI over 25 or being overweight was significantly associated with a higher risk of having glaucoma. In terms of macular degeneration, we see similar results arise. In this study, researchers from Harvard Medical School followed 261 patients with age-related macular degeneration and also took detailed weight and waist circumference measurements. After following patients for an average of 4.6 years, they found that patients with BMIs greater than 25 had double the risk of developing advanced macular degeneration. And in terms of diabetic eye disease, thanks to decades of clinical research, it's common knowledge now among eye doctors that uncontrolled elevated blood glucose levels are causally linked to damage to the blood vessels throughout our bodies and in our eyes, which can lead to bleeding and swelling in our retinas, which can unfortunately progress to blindness. And of course, eating these processed foods with lots of added sugars wreaks havoc on our blood glucose levels and all of our vasculature throughout our entire body in the long term. So the goal is to try to fill our diet with whole, minimally processed foods. Things like vegetables, fruits, beans, nuts, and lean meats, as they naturally contain fiber, vitamins, and minerals to help maintain good overall health as well as vision health. Okay, to recap, 3 great habits we can try to incorporate into our routines to optimize our eye health are: 1. Aiming to walk 7,500 steps per day or doing moderate intensity exercise for 45 minutes 3 or 4 times a week. 2. We can try to increase our time outside to about 2 hours per day, but remember to keep our eyes and our skin protected from direct sunlight. And 3, replacing our diet of processed foods full of added sugars with whole, minimally processed foods like vegetables, fruits, legumes, and lean meats instead. I hope this review was helpful to you. If you live in the Los Angeles, Orange County, or Inland Empire area and want an eye checkup, feel free to visit our website or give our phone number a call to make an appointment today. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get all the latest updates. I'm Dr. Michael Chua with Puente Hills Eye Care. See you next time.